The Lord be with you, and a warm welcome to you as always from all of us here at Powerscourt with Kilbride. It's Sunday the 4th of August and you're very welcome to join us as always in this little square as we celebrate the presence of God in prayer and in scripture. And so as our time together begins, we pause for a moment to still ourselves in prayer. Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." The story that I'm about to read you is in part my story. It's about somebody I'll call Daly, because my father used to call me Katie Daly when I was very small, so we'll call her Daly. But to be quite honest with you, it's not Daly's story, it's our story. It's about our own humanity. It's about the many different chapters in our stories, our loves, our losses, our joys, and our lack. And so this is an example, only an example used this morning to refer to our human condition in a rather more personal way. But interwoven with that story is his story, and different to our story as a human race, as humanity, his story is entirely his own. And his ability as the one who came from a divine source and is divinity himself, his ability to be able to reach into our stories as the bread of life and to restore our lack or our hurt or pain is surpassed by no other power in the world. So let Daly's story be our story, but in glory of his story at the very heart of it. Daly was small and thin and wiry. She had been christened another more normal and satisfactory name, but the name Daly had arisen from a pet name she was called by her father, whom she adored, and the sound of it filled her with a warm feeling of being loved. As soon as she could walk, Daly ran, and as soon as she could climb, she managed to free herself from the spindly walls of her cot and run to her parents' room in the dark hours of night, or begin to climb on objects and lower branches of trees. She was a wild spirit who knew well the feeling of freedom, legs spinning through the long grass of a summer's field as she ran down the incline, wind in her hair and arms held outward for takeoff. Daly also knew change. Even though the pictures are fading now, she knew the time in her life when the adults changed around her. She couldn't understand the bigger picture, but she felt their energy shift and become more silent, more sad, and it terrified her. Her closest person, no doubt, although she couldn't quite remember, her mother, seemed to be suddenly removed. There were a lot of people in the house, and a certain look upon their faces she would grow accustomed to as the years passed by, and later understand as sympathy. There and then, she did the only thing she could in order to survive. She sought to steady the ground around herself, to keep her safe, while not understanding why, and she sought to steady the ground around those too who were around her. She was an only child of a widower in the 1960s Ireland. That's where Daly was born. The name, that is, and quite possibly the character. He and she had stew for supper from the pot that would serve them for 3 days, drip-dry school shirts and bad haircuts with kitchen scissors. Some of the happiest days of her life in the hands of her remarkable father, who did his best in his own grief to bring her joy. Daly grew up with resilience and gratitude and no small degree of caution. Her life led her through a second family for the second 10 years of her life, a family who had also come from a place of grief. Daly left home with a new sense of freedom, but the craving for acceptance remained inside and led her down pathways into relationships that were wrong for her, until finally that love came and she ran into the safe harbour provided and raised a family of her own, vowing to make sure no child within her house was excluded or afraid or trapped or withheld their own Daly. And yet the craving remained somewhere buried deep inside her, and she knew the feeling of it because for a short while earlier in her life it had been taken away. Somewhere along the way she had encountered a man beneath a tall tree. She hadn't been able to see him, but she knew that he was there from his palpable presence, and the world had stopped still, and the storm within herself had been calmed by the outreach of his hand. This presence had removed the hunger from within her soul, and for the rest of her life she would remember that encounter and long for the peace that it brought, a peace that she now knew was offered to every soul that came to him. She realised that every soul had its journey, and many were craving the approval and affection she had. That many had been led by this craving to addictions, both large and small, the little treats that made the day more bearable. Addictions in all their various forms, some taking lives and ruining them, some as simply as her own, a deeply profound need for acceptance. But the man beneath the tree had provided the answer. He called himself the bread of life and said that anyone who came to him would never hunger, anyone who believed in him would never thirst, that all of the cravings that grew as a result of our human condition could be stilled and sated by his presence within us. She had experienced that firsthand beneath the tree. She wanted more than anything to be able to speak of that man and that peace to everyone, to tell people that it didn't rely on their own strength, but on the strength that was provided by the one that loved them unconditionally. That only if they came to him and if only they believed in him, he could heal what was lacking within them. Jesus didn't say, "Eat of me and you will never hunger," or "Drink of me and you will never thirst." He said, "Come to me and believe in me." And in those words and in his presence alone, he had the ability to heal the human condition present within every person. You see, I am here to remind you that Daly exists within us all for a multiple of different reasons and a multiple of different journeys. Those who come to me will never be hungry, and those who believe in me will never be thirsty. Come and believe. And Daly still exists. She would still welcome the opportunity to climb a tree, but her body is less reliable now. She would still welcome the opportunity to run as before through the long grass of the field with the wind in her hair. And somehow, just somehow, she does. And she can. Because he releases her, even within her soul, to become fully loved, fully accepted, and fully daily.